This video is sponsored by Skillshare. More on them later. Teaching yourself anything is 1,000 times harder than getting lessons from a really great teacher. But in my opinion, if we can understand what makes those great teachers so great, we can replicate it ourselves and learn any skill really quickly. For 10 years of my life, I got weekly violin lessons from the best teacher that I've ever had. It was amazing. But since finishing those lessons, I've been able to teach myself 2 more instruments, how to produce music, how to DJ, which was my job for a few years, and then beyond music even, I've been able to teach myself how to surf, how to snowboard, and how to do an around the world with a football, all using pretty much only online tutorials. So why is it so much easier to learn something when we have an amazing teacher? Well, you might say it's because they're an expert in their field. They know all the information and they know exactly what it takes to get you where you need to get to. To that I'd say yes, but I kind of think these days with the internet, we have our own abilities to find out that information ourselves. Then you might say, well, having lessons every week, it keeps you accountable. It makes you put in the work, and putting in the work is what you need to do to get to where you want to get to. And to that I'd say yes, but I didn't practice violin that much back in the day. And there are also so many other techniques to keep yourself accountable outside of having a mentor. It's very useful, but I don't think it's the main thing. So what is it? What's the secret sauce that these teachers have that near guarantees that we'll reach our goals, and the one skill that you need to teach yourself anything? Well, I think it goes a bit deeper than just learning skills. It's self-awareness. When you're getting lessons for something, a great teacher is constantly assessing and reevaluating what you're good at, what you're bad at, and then tailoring what they teach you to fit that. Not only does that mean that you're constantly moving forward towards your goals, but it also means that you're constantly in that zone of optimal difficulty, where what you're learning is just hard enough for you to stay stimulated, but not too hard that you end up giving up. You're in a cycle of progress and motivation. The problem is, even if we think we're super self-aware in our everyday lives, as soon as we start trying to learn a new skill, we just become terrible at it. We jump into things that are too hard or too easy without even realizing it, and we never really have that clear step-by-step map of what we need to do to get where we want to get. I think that with the colossal amount of information out there these days, it's more important than ever that we become able to pinpoint what information we actually need to learn. And the only way I think we can do that is by becoming more self-aware. Hopefully, this video can help you do that. I kind of feel like I presented myself as a bit of a legend at the beginning, but while I think I've gotten better at this than most, I'm still in a constant battle. I'm still constantly falling off the horse every few months because I'm struggling to find that zone of optimal difficulty. I just want to share the mindset that's helped me get better at this and teach myself a few things. Now, I know I called it self-awareness in the intro, but I think what I'm talking about has 2 distinct parts that we can split it up into. We've got self-awareness and we've got contextual awareness. By self-awareness, I kind of mean what I was talking about before. It's the awareness of your own abilities and being able to constantly assess when something's too hard or too easy for you. By contextual awareness, I mean how aware you are of where you and your skills fit in the broader context of people trying to learn similar skills at similar skill levels. If you have self-awareness and no contextual awareness, you're good at identifying where your strengths and weaknesses are and what to improve, but once you've identified that, you don't know how much to improve and you don't know what to do once you've finished improving those things. Since you don't know where you fit in the broader scheme of things, you're not great at mapping that path forward. If you have contextual awareness but no self-awareness, you might understand what it takes to be a beginner or an intermediate and how all the skills kind of interrelate, but you won't be able to reflect in yourself and figure out what you need to do next. You need both to make progress. Just as a side note, I think it'd be pretty rare to find someone with contextual awareness but no self-awareness, but I'm sure they do exist. So when you have a great teacher, both of these things are outsourced. A great teacher pays attention to you and is very aware of what you're good at and what you're bad at. And they also presumably have a lot of other students, so they have a great idea of the context and where you fit in relation. God, it'd be nice to have weekly lessons for everything. When you're trying to teach yourself something, I don't think you can really outsource the self-awareness that you need. You kind of need to develop that yourself. But in the short term, I do think there is one trick to outsource the contextual awareness, and that's taking one fully structured class from start to finish. And you can take those classes on today's video sponsor, and the first sponsor on this channel, Skillshare. As some of you will know, I've been focusing more on upping my guitar skills recently, and one thing that's really been helping is this neo-soul guitar course from the bearded guitarist on Skillshare. I'll be honest, I don't know much about neo-soul, except for the fact that I've wanted to learn it for a while. So having someone who does know a lot about it curate this path of exactly what I need to know, how I can learn it, and in what order is super powerful. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say outsourcing contextual awareness. As another side note, I did my first ever hybrid picking from this class. It feels really unnatural, but like good at the same time. I don't know. It's kind of fun though. Of course, I've got to make sure the class is taking me exactly where I want to go. But that's the great thing about Skillshare. If it's not, there are thousands of other classes to choose from. That's because, if you don't know, it's the largest online learning community for creatives. So along with classes like this guitar one, it's got classes for piano, music production, music theory, songwriting, and then beyond even music, it's got stuff like illustration, film, just basically everything creativity and heaps more.
I'm Elijah Fox, pianist, producer, and songwriter.
Once you find the right class, the set structure of one of those classes can be really powerful for moving you through the journey of progression. And to take it one step further, they have these things called learning paths. Those are sequential collections of classes, and all that means for you is that once you finish a class, you're not just bumbling around figuring out what to do next. You have the next step right in front of you. If that sounds interesting to you, the first 500 people to use my link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. Alright, how do we actually do this? As annoying as it might sound, there's no way around it. It just comes from a lot of time and a lot of self-reflection. No, okay, that is true, but I think there is one sneaky trick that you can use. It's to record yourself. Now this works because of a funny thing called working memory. Working memory is like your brain's RAM, and when you're working on a new skill, it takes all your working memory to focus on it. That means that you literally don't have the mental capacity to reflect on yourself while you're doing it. So if you record yourself and come back later, you physically have more brain capacity to actually see what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And it's not even like a conscious effort you have to put in, you just see it. It's really weird. If you've ever done this, you'll know how freaky it is, the sorts of things that you notice afterwards that you had no idea were happening in the moment. So in the spirit of this tip, I'm going to try and learn to do a reverse around the world using it. This is about to be so meta. So I know how to do an around the world. But what I've never done is a reverse one. I don't know if that's what it's called, but it's where like the foot goes on the outside and it goes around in the other direction. That's what I want to learn today. So it'd be like, I have no idea how to do this. So this is what I was doing. My foot isn't really going around it. How to do So he seems to go more around the front than around the top. Big toe area. Okay, so what am I doing? It looks like I'm trying to get my foot over the top of the ball rather than around the front. That's why I ended up kicking it to the side. Foot around the front then. Feels really weird. Hit it on the big toe area. That counts. I did not think I was going to do that. That was because I hit it with my big toe and kicked it around the front rather than I'm so stoked. I don't know, did I learn it? I haven't filmed that segment yet. Now, if you have any other tips for improving your self-awareness when getting better at a skill, please chuck them in the comments. But in my experience, it does take a lot of time. Once you feel how hard something is in the moment and then see how much better you get later, you start to develop a bit of an intuition for what the optimal difficulty is. And I think you can do that too. So that's self-awareness. How do we develop the awareness of context? Even if you've built up a pretty objective and accurate picture of your own abilities, that picture isn't complete unless you understand where it fits into the broader context. That's what we need this for. To do it, we need to build a frame of reference. This one's more relevant to bigger skills that have a lot of smaller skills inside them, like learning an instrument, for example. So let me give you an example, and hopefully it's not too far-fetched. Apple just released their new processors in their computers. That's really fast. This is the score it got on a CPU test. Okay, but is that fast? Is that slow? You don't know. You don't have any reference points around it. So how will we figure out how fast this computer actually is? Well, it's obvious. We'd get lots of similar computers and then compare them. Let's transfer that example into a concrete skills example. My guitar progress. Let's say that I'm trying to get better at improvising, and I think that my theory knowledge is what's holding me back. That's a pretty valid conclusion to draw, and it might well be the case. But if I have a bunch of friends who are way better at improv than me, and I notice that I know a lot more theory than they do, maybe it's a sign that theory isn't the thing that's holding me back. I wouldn't have known that if I didn't have that frame of reference. Either way, having that frame is extremely useful to figure out what to do next. Building a frame of reference could be as simple as just having a few mates who are learning a similar skill and are at similar skill levels to you. You might already have people you can use in a frame of reference and you have to get to know them a bit better, or you might need to find some new people. And if you can't find people similar enough to yourself for this in real life, there are heaps of online communities for it. So going back to the computer example really quickly, we wouldn't compare these like budget-friendly computers to the best computer that money can buy. That's just not useful. So why do we do that with ourselves? The frame of reference can't include the best guitarists in the world. Yes, it's good to have a goal and to see where you would love to get to maybe one day, but that doesn't count as the frame of reference. And then jumping back to the computer analogy just one more time, you don't have to build your frame of reference necessarily around price, even though it is useful. You could do it around computers from the same manufacturer or computers which are built for the same purpose. And in that same way, you could do that with your frame of reference for yourself. I'm a way better music producer than most guitarists are, so maybe I could find a group of music producers and then compare my guitar abilities to theirs and see where the abilities stack up. Maybe that could be helpful for my purposes. Or maybe I could compare it to songwriters, because I'm not necessarily trying to learn guitar so that I can shred and play incredible solos. I'm learning it so that I can write stuff. Maybe that'd be useful. Now I'm aware there's a really fine line here. Using this frame of reference as an objective tool can be really useful, but it can become really toxic really quickly if it starts to become about your own self-worth or other people's self-worth and diminishing that. As soon as that happens and you can feel it getting a bit unhealthy, take a step back. These are just tools. Take what helps, leave what doesn't. After all, we are all on completely different paths, and we all have completely different skill sets, so comparison for the sake of self-worth makes no sense at all. So, hopefully you found some of that useful. There are a million things that go into teaching yourself something. But even if you didn't find any of that particularly actionable, hopefully some of the mindset and thought organization could be helpful. Also, really exciting to actually have a sponsor on this channel for the first time. It's only thanks to you guys watching my channel and supporting me that this has been possible at all. So thank you. I genuinely think Skillshare is a really cool service that you guys could get a lot of value out of. So that's why I decided to partner with them. So if you're interested, again, first 500 people get a free trial. All right, see you next week.